The dust storm that swept through Devil's Canyon that morning carried more than just the taste of drought and death. It carried the scent of destiny, though Ezra Holloway didn't know it yet as he rapped his face against the burning sand, searching for water in a land that had forgotten what mercy meant. In 3 hours, he would find something that would change everything. 2 Apache sisters, trapped and dying, whose rescue would bring their chief to his door with an offer that defied every law of the frontier. But first, he had to decide if saving his enemies was worth losing everything he had left. Before we dive into the story, if you love tales of unexpected redemption and the powerful bonds that form between unlikely souls, click the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss more heart-wrenching stories tomorrow. And please, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from and what time it is there. We love connecting with viewers from around the world. Now let's continue with the story. The morning sun hadn't yet scorched the earth when Ezra led his last good horse through the narrow ravines of Devil's Canyon. 3 months without rain had turned his ranch into a graveyard of dead cattle and broken dreams. His ribs, still tender from being thrown by a spooked mare 2 weeks prior, protested with each step. But water meant survival, and survival was all he had left after Martha died of the fever and took their unborn child with her. The abandoned garrison mine lay ahead, its entrance partially collapsed from last winter's floods. Pete Garrison had died 6 months ago, leaving Ezra his tools and little else. But sometimes the old mines held water in their depths, trapped pools that could mean the difference between life and death. Ezra tied his horse to a dead mesquite and squeezed through the opening. That's when he heard it. A sound that shouldn't exist in an abandoned mine. Breathing, labored, and desperate. His hand went to his Colt, though he knew one bullet wouldn't save him if this was an ambush. The shaft curved left, and there in the dim light filtering through cracks in the collapsed ceiling, he saw them. 2 women, Apache by their dress, pinned beneath massive timber beams. But these weren't ordinary Apache women. Even trapped and covered in dust, he could see they were uncommonly tall. Their frames powerful despite their current helplessness. The younger one's eyes fluttered open, focusing on him with fevered intensity. She whispered something in Apache, then switched to broken English. "Please, my sister, she dies." Ezra stood frozen. The cavalry post at Fort Defiance paid $50 for Apache scalps. $50 would buy seed for next season, maybe even a new well. But as he looked at the older sister, unconscious and bleeding from a head wound, he saw Martha's face in his memory. Martha, who had begged for help as the fever took her while he sat powerless. Not again. Never again. He began to dig. The weight of the timber beam sent lightning through Ezra's damaged ribs as he leveraged it off the older sister. 3 hours of digging and lifting had left his hands bloody, his back screaming, but both women were finally free. The younger one, despite her own injuries, helped him drag her unconscious sister from the mine's unstable depths. In the harsh daylight, Ezra saw what he hadn't noticed in the darkness. Intricate scars covered their arms, deliberate patterns that seemed to tell a story he couldn't read. The ride back to his ranch took until sunset. The older sister, draped across his horse, remained unconscious while the younger one walked beside him, stumbling but refusing his offers to rest. She kept looking back toward the mountains, as if expecting pursuit, or perhaps searching for something lost. Ezra's adobe home squatted against a ridge like a wounded animal, its walls cracked from the heat, roof patched with whatever he could scavenge. Inside, he laid the unconscious woman on his own bed, while her sister collapsed beside her. That's when he got his first real look at the markings. They weren't just scars. They were art, deliberate and beautiful, spiraling up both women's arms in patterns that seemed to shift in the lamplight. "Sacred marks," the younger one said, noticing his stare. Her English came in spurts, mixed with Apache words he didn't understand. "We are, how you say, protectors. I am Nashoda. She is Ayana, my sister." Ezra brought water, precious water he couldn't spare, and clean cloth torn from Martha's wedding dress he'd kept in the trunk. As he cleaned Ayana's head wound, Nashoda watched him with eyes that seemed far older than her years. The fever had taken hold of her now, making her shake, despite the stifling heat inside the adobe. "The burning children," she muttered, half delirious. "Grandfather's promise. The white eagle who walks with two hearts." Her hand grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. "You have death in your eyes. Recent death. Woman death." Ezra pulled away, disturbed. How could she know about Martha? He focused on cleaning wounds, brewing willow bark tea from his dwindling supplies. Ayana's breathing grew steadier, though she remained unconscious. The gash on her head was deep, but clean. She would live if infection didn't set in. Night fell like a blanket of coal. Nashota's fever spiked, and she thrashed on the floor, speaking rapidly in Apache. Sometimes she would switch to English, fragments that made no sense. "The valley breathes," she said. "The waters remember. Grandfather sees the broken man becoming whole." Ezra sat between them, watching. He should ride to Fort Defiance, claim the bounty. $100 for 2 Apache women, especially ones with markings that clearly meant something important. That money would save his ranch, give him a future. But every time he looked at them, he saw Martha begging for water in her final hours, saw himself helpless and alone. Ayana's eyes opened suddenly, fixed on him with predator intensity. She tried to rise, fell back, then spoke in perfect English. "You could have left us to die. Why didn't you?" 3 days passed in a strange rhythm of care and caution. Ezra shared his last sack of cornmeal, his final strips of dried beef, watching his winter supplies vanish into keeping these Apache women alive. Ayana's suspicion gradually gave way to guarded curiosity as she watched him tend to Nashota's fever with the same attention he'd once given Martha. She spoke little, but her eyes followed his every movement, especially when he checked his rifle each night and chose not to ride for help. "You're different from the others," Ayana said on the 3rd morning, her voice stronger now. She sat up for the first time, though the movement clearly pained her. "Most white men would see gold in our capture. The fort pays well for Apache prisoners, especially ones like us." Ezra was cleaning Nashota's fever-soaked face with precious water. "Blood money never grows anything good," he said quietly. "Learned that in the war." Nashota's fever had finally broken during the night, and she lay peaceful now, occasionally muttering about grandfather and promises. Ayana watched her sister with an expression Ezra recognized, the fierce protectiveness of someone who had already lost too much. "We were searching," Ayana said suddenly, as if making a decision. "Something was taken from our people. Something sacred. The men who took it died in that mine collapse, but what they stole wasn't with them. We had to know if they'd hidden it somewhere." She touched the scars on her arms. "These marks mean we're bound to protect it, even unto death." That evening, Ezra noticed the moon rising strange and red through his broken window. A blood moon, full and ominous. Nashota stirred, her eyes opening with sudden clarity. "Tonight," she whispered. "Grandfather comes tonight." Ayana's face went pale. She struggled to stand, using the wall for support. "You need to leave. Take your horse and ride. Don't come back until tomorrow's Sunday." "This is my land," Ezra said, though the word land felt hollow when describing his failing ranch. "I don't run. You don't understand," Ayana said urgently. "Our grandfather is Chief Kuruk. When he learns what you've done, keeping us here, he'll assume you're holding us for ransom or worse. He won't ask questions before he acts. Then tell him the truth." Nashota laughed weakly from her makeshift bed. "Grandfather doesn't trust words from white men. He trusts actions." "And your actions?" She paused, studying him. "Your actions are unusual. The broken white man with Apache heart. Just like the old stories said." Ezra didn't understand their meaning, but he understood the fear in Ayana's eyes. Real fear, not for herself, but for him. It was the same look Martha had given him when she knew the fever would take her, begging him to leave so he wouldn't catch it too. "I stayed with my wife until the end," he said simply. "I'll stay now." The blood moon climbed higher, painting the desert crimson. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled. Or maybe it wasn't a wolf at all. Ayana moved to the window, her movement still painful but determined. "Then you should know," she said softly. that grandfather has never let a white man who touched his granddaughters live. Never. Dawn came with the thunder of hooves. 20 Apache warriors materialized from the desert like ghosts given form, surrounding Ezra's ranch in perfect silence after their dramatic arrival. At their center rode a man who seemed carved from the mountains themselves. Chief Kuruk stood 7 feet tall, his shoulders broad as a barn door, the same powerful build his granddaughters had inherited. His face showed decades of war and loss, eyes that had seen too much blood on both sides. Ezra stood on his porch, hands visible and empty. Ayana and Nashota emerged behind him. Nashota still weak, but standing. Ayana positioning herself strangely between Ezra and her grandfather. The chief dismounted in one fluid motion that defied his size, his warriors remaining mounted but ready. Kuruk spoke in Apache to his granddaughters, his voice like distant thunder. Nashota responded quickly, gesturing to Ezra, but the chief raised his hand for silence. He approached Ezra with measured steps, each one deliberate. Up close, Ezra could see the same intricate scarring on the chief's arms, though his pattern seemed more complex, telling a longer story. Without warning, Kuruk grabbed Ezra's hands, turning them over to examine the calluses, the fresh cuts from digging his granddaughters free. He studied Ezra's face, seemed to catalog every line of grief etched there. Then he walked past him into the adobe home. Ezra heard him moving through the sparse rooms, saw him pause at the open trunk with Martha's wedding dress, now torn for bandages. The chief emerged carrying the empty cornmeal sack, the last of Ezra's winter supplies. He smelled it, then looked at his granddaughters, who were clearly well fed despite their injuries. His expression shifted, unreadable as stone. "You gave them your last food," Kuruk said in clear English, surprising Ezra. "Your final water in drought time? Why?" It wasn't really a question, but Ezra answered anyway. "They needed it more than I did. You could have traded us for gold at the fort, enough to save this dying place. Some things shouldn't be traded." Kuruk circled him slowly, a mountain lion studying prey. The old stories speak of a white eagle who walks with 2 hearts. One heart dead from grief, one learning to beat again through service to enemies. He stopped directly in front of Ezra. "My granddaughters say you are this man. I'm just a rancher trying to survive." "No," Nashota spoke up, her voice stronger. "You're the one from the vision, the one who guards the secret." Kuruk's eyes narrowed. "You know nothing of our secrets, white man." "I know your granddaughters were looking for something in that mine, something stolen, something worth risking their lives for." The chief was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke words that changed everything. "There is a valley, hidden, sacred. Its waters heal what white man's medicine cannot. My granddaughters guard this secret with their blood. Someone discovered its location, seeks to destroy it for gold." He paused, studying Ezra's reaction. "I offer you a choice. Marry Ayana, become protector of this secret, bridge our peoples, or die here for what you've seen and heard." The warriors raised their rifles slightly. Ayana stepped forward, her eyes meeting Ezra's with an expression he couldn't read. The morning sun climbed higher, and Ezra realized his next words would determine whether he lived to see it set. The silence stretched until Ayana broke it. "Grandfather, he needs to understand before he chooses." She turned to Ezra, her dark eyes holding something that might have been hope. "Come, we'll show you why this matters." Kuruk nodded slowly, and the entire party began moving north into the canyon lands. Ezra rode his tired horse between Ayana and Nashota, the warriors maintaining their circle around them. They traveled paths he'd never seen, despite living here 5 years, passages hidden behind optical illusions of rock and shadow. After 2 hours, they entered a narrow crevice that seemed to lead nowhere. But Ayana touched specific rocks in sequence, and what looked like solid stone revealed itself as a carefully constructed barrier. Beyond it lay something impossible. A valley green with life, while everything outside died of drought. Steam rose from natural pools that terraced down the canyon, each one glowing faintly blue-green in the morning light. "The minerals," Nashota explained, dismounting carefully. "They're unlike anything your scientists know. Mixed with the hot springs, they heal wounds that shouldn't heal, cure the wasting sickness that takes so many children, both Apache and white. Ezra watched a warrior with a festering bullet wound lower himself into one of the pools. The water around him shimmered, and within minutes, the angry red infection began to fade. It was impossible, yet he was seeing it happen. "My people have protected this place for 7 generations," Kuruk said. "But now white prospectors search for it. They believe the minerals can be mined, sold, made into medicine for profit. They would dynamite these pools, destroy the balance that creates the healing." Ayana led Ezra to a smaller pool where several children sat, both Apache and, surprisingly, 2 white children. "Settlers sometimes find us when their children are dying," she explained. "We never turn them away, but they must swear silence." One of the white children, a girl maybe 7 years old, looked up at Ezra with bright, healthy eyes. "The water fixed my lungs," she said simply. "Mama said I was dying from the coughing sickness, but the Apache ladies brought us here." Ezra recognized her then, the Hartley girl from 2 Rivers. Her family had vanished 3 months ago. Everyone assumed they'd been killed by Apache raids. But here was proof of a different truth. The Hartleys stood nearby, talking quietly with an Apache family, their son playing with Apache children. "This is what you're asking me to protect?" Ezra asked. "This is what we're asking you to help us protect," Ayana corrected. "The men searching for this place, they have maps now. Partial ones, but enough. They're bringing machinery, workers, weapons. We can fight them, but it would bring the cavalry. A war would destroy everything." She paused, watching the children playing. "But if a white man stood with us, married into our tribe, he could speak to both sides, make them understand." "The broken white man with Apache heart," Nashoda said softly. "The prophecy said he would come when the waters were threatened, carrying death in one eye and life in the other." Ezra looked at the pools, the healing they offered, the impossible peace between enemies in this sacred space. Then he looked at Ayana, seeing her fully for the first time, not as an Apache woman, not as an enemy, but as someone fighting to protect something precious. "The marriage," he said carefully, "would it be just for show? A political arrangement?" Ayana's expression softened slightly. "That would depend on us, wouldn't it?" The sacred valley lingered in Ezra's mind as they returned to his ranch. Chief Kuruk had given him 3 days to decide, though the way Ayana looked at him suggested she already knew his answer. But as they crested the final ridge before his property, Ezra saw dust clouds rising from his land, military dust, organized and purposeful. Colonel Brennan sat on Ezra's porch like he owned it, 12 cavalrymen positioned around the property. The colonel was everything Ezra had learned to hate during the war. Clean uniform despite the desert heat, waxed mustache, eyes that saw Apache raids in every shadow. His hand rested on his saber even while sitting. "Holloway," Brennan called out as Ezra approached alone, having left Ayana and Nashoda hidden in the ravine. "Interesting tracks around your property. Apache ponies, unless I miss my guess. Recent, too." Ezra dismounted slowly, keeping his movements casual. "Lots of travelers pass through. I don't check their boots." "Travelers." Brennan stood, his boot heels clicking on the wooden porch. "Funny thing about travelers, they usually travel. These tracks circle your property, stay a while, almost like someone was visiting." 2 soldiers emerged from Ezra's house, shaking their heads at the colonel. They'd found nothing, but Brennan's suspicion remained sharp as a blade. He walked closer to Ezra, close enough that Ezra could smell the pomade in his mustache. "You know the penalty for harboring hostiles, Holloway? We hang sympathizers, same as we hang raiders." He paused, studying Ezra's face. "Your neighbor Peterson says he saw Apache women near your land 4 days ago. Tall ones," he said. "Distinctive. Peterson drinks. He sees lots of things." Brennan backhanded him casually, the kind of blow meant to humiliate more than harm. "I fought in the territories for 8 years, Holloway. I know the smell of Apache. And this whole place reeks of them." From her hiding spot, Ezra knew Ayana was probably fighting every instinct to intervene. but revealing herself would mean death for all of them. He spit blood and straightened. Then burn it down if you're so sure. Destroy a citizen's property without proof. See how that plays at your court-martial. The colonel's face darkened. You think you're clever, but I know something's happening here. He turned to his men. Search the ravines, every cave, every possible hiding spot. If you find Apache, kill them. If you find evidence they were here, burn this place to the ground. The soldiers scattered, and Ezra's heart hammered. Ayana and Nashoda were well hidden, but Nashoda was still weak. If they had to run, she might not make it. And if they were found, the Sacred Valley's location might be tortured out of them. While they search, Brennan said, sitting back down on the porch, you're going to tell me why a broken-down rancher with nothing left to lose suddenly seems so protective of his worthless land. Ezra met his eyes steadily. My wife is buried on this land. That worth enough for you? For the first time, Brennan's expression shifted slightly. But before he could respond, one of his soldiers came running back, face flushed with excitement. Colonel, we found something. Blood trails in the ravine. Recent. Leading toward the old garrison mine. Brennan smiled coldly. Well then, let's see what you've been hiding, Holloway. He drew his revolver. And if we find Apache, you'll hang beside them before sunset. The blood trail led to the mine, but no further, ending where Ezra had rescued the sisters days ago. Brennan's frustration grew with each empty cave they searched, each dead end they found. As the sun peaked, he finally called his men back, but not before issuing a warning. I'll be watching you, Holloway. One mistake, and I'll see you hang. After the cavalry disappeared into the desert heat, Ayana and Nashoda emerged from a hidden crevice Ezra hadn't even known existed. They'd been close enough to hear everything, close enough that discovery would have meant death. Nashoda was trembling from the effort of staying silent while injured. We need to find what the prospectors hid, Ayana said urgently. If Brennan's searching this area, others will come too. They returned to the ranch as darkness fell. That's when Nashoda noticed something odd about the tools Pete Garrison had left Ezra. These markings, she said, running her fingers along the handle of a pickaxe. They're not random. They're directions. Ezra lit every lamp he had, and they spread Pete's belongings across his table. Hidden in the leather wrapping of a shovel handle, carved into the bottom of a tin cup, scratched inside a compass case, were fragments of something larger. When assembled correctly, they formed a partial map. Pete was one of them, Ezra said, disbelief heavy in his voice. He was searching for your valley. But more disturbing was Pete's journal hidden in a false bottom of his toolbox. The entries revealed everything. A mining company called Fortuna Enterprises had hired 7 men to find the Sacred Valley. Pete and another man named Walsh had gotten closest, discovering the entrance markers before the mine collapse killed Walsh and left Pete dying. But Pete had sent word to Fortuna before he died. They were coming. 15 men with dynamite and drilling equipment, Ayana read from the final entry. Led by a former Confederate raider named Samuel Holloway. Ezra's blood turned to ice. That's impossible. Samuel died at Andersonville. I got the letter. The journal says otherwise, Nashoda said gently. It describes him. Says he survived the prison but came back different. Takes any job for money now, no matter how bloody. Ezra sank into a chair, the weight of it crushing him. His younger brother, the one who'd taught him to read stars, who'd carved wooden toys for local children, was coming to destroy the Sacred Valley, alive but twisted into something unrecognizable. There's more, Ayana said, studying the map. They're not just coming for the minerals. Fortuna believes the water itself can be bottled and sold. They plan to drain the pools, cart the water to cities back east. They'll destroy everything. When? Ezra asked, though he dreaded the answer. Nashoda checked Pete's final entry again. 4 days from now. They'll approach from the southern pass, the one place our warriors don't regularly patrol because it seems impassable. It is impassable, Ayana said, unless someone knows the old Spanish mining trails. Which Samuel does, Ezra said quietly. He studied every historical map of this territory during the war. Said knowing the land meant winning the battle. The weight of the moment settled on them. The sacred valley faced its greatest threat, and the destroyer carried Ezra's own blood. Ayana placed her hand on his shoulder, a gesture of comfort that surprised them both.
"Then we have 4 days to prepare,"
she said. 4 days to save the valley and maybe save your brother's soul. Samuel doesn't have a soul anymore, Ezra replied. Andersonville killed that gentle boy. What's coming is something else wearing his face. The decision came easier than Ezra expected. Standing before Chief Kuruk at dawn, he spoke the words that would bind him to Ayana and her people. Not for survival, not for the sacred valley alone, but for the woman who'd shown him that his heart could still beat for something beyond grief. The ceremony took place in a hidden canyon painted with ancient symbols, where Apache and the few trusted white families gathered. Ayana wore her grandmother's dress, adorned with beads that caught the morning light like stolen stars. When she looked at Ezra, he saw not duty, but genuine affection, born from their shared vigil over Nashotah, their desperate search through Pete's belongings, their quiet conversations under desert stars. In our tradition, Kuruk said, mixing Apache custom with words Ezra could understand. Marriage is not just joining two people, but joining two purposes. You stand here as bridge between worlds that have only known war. Ezra spoke his vows in carefully practiced Apache, making Nashotah smile despite her lingering weakness. Ayana responded in English, her voice carrying across the canyon. I take you not as conqueror or conquered, but as equal. We protect together what neither could protect alone. The Hartley family stood witness alongside Apache elders, their presence proof that peace was possible. Young Sarah Hartley placed a crown of desert flowers on Ayana's head, while her brother offered Ezra an eagle feather, taught by his Apache playmates that it meant courage. As the sun reached its peak, they shared the ceremonial drink from the sacred pools, water that bound them to their purpose. Ezra felt something shift inside him, not magic, but clarity. Martha's ghost, which had haunted every quiet moment, seemed to step back, giving permission for this new chapter. You honor her memory by choosing life? Ayana whispered, somehow understanding his thoughts. The celebration should have lasted until nightfall, but a scout's arrival shattered the joy. He spoke rapidly in Apache, making Kuruk's expression darken. Ayana translated, her voice tight with worry. The mining company isn't waiting 4 days. They're already at the southern pass, and they're not alone. Colonel Brennan's cavalry rides with them, claiming they're pursuing Apache raiders. The peaceful gathering transformed instantly. Warriors, checked weapons, families prepared to flee to defensive positions. But it was Nashotah who delivered the worst news, having forced the scout to repeat every detail. Their leader? She said, looking at Ezra with sympathy. The scout recognized him from old wanted posters. Samuel Holloway. He says Samuel keeps talking about his brother, about settling old scores. Ezra felt Ayana's hand find his. He thinks you're dead, she said. That's the only explanation. He wouldn't come here if he knew you were alive. Or he knows exactly where I am, Ezra replied, remembering Samuel's talent for strategy. And he's counting on me trying to save everyone. Kuruk approached them, his wedding joy replaced by war chief determination. We have maybe 10 hours before they reach the valley entrance. The warriors are ready to fight, but if the cavalry's involved, it becomes a massacre that brings more soldiers. Then we don't fight them, Ezra said, his mind racing through possibilities. We make them fight each other. Samuel's raiders and Brennan's cavalry aren't natural allies. They're together for convenience. That can be broken. How? Kuruk asked. Ezra looked at his new wife, his new family, the impossible alliance around him. By showing my brother that some things he believes dead are actually very much alive, and by proving to Brennan that the real enemy isn't Apache. The wedding feast transformed into a war council, joy into strategy, as they prepared for a confrontation that would determine everything. The southern pass narrowed at Devil's Throat, where ancient floods had carved stone into jagged teeth. Ezra stood at its entrance as the sun began its descent, Ayana hidden among the rocks above with Apache warriors, while Nashota had reluctantly agreed to guard the families deeper in the valley. The sound of approaching horses echoed off canyon walls, mixed with rough laughter and the clink of equipment. Samuel appeared first, and Ezra's chest tightened. His brother's face had been carved hollow by whatever horrors Andersonville had birthed. Scars covered his neck, his left eye clouded white, his cavalry uniform replaced by the mongrel clothing of a man who belonged nowhere. Behind him rode 12 hard men, and further back, Colonel Brennan's cavalry unit maintained careful distance, their alliance clearly uneasy. Samuel raised his hand, stopping his men. For a long moment, the brothers stared at each other across 30 feet of desert ground. Then Samuel laughed, a sound like breaking glass.
Ezra, my sentimental fool of a brother.
I knew you'd be here. His voice had changed, rougher, carved by screaming. Pete Garrison wrote about a rancher near the Hidden Valley. Had to be you. Always trying to save things that don't want saving. Hello, Samuel. Ezra kept his voice steady. You look like hell. Hell's exactly right. That's what Andersonville was. Hell with Georgia heat and Yankee guards. You know what I ate to survive? Things that weren't meant for eating. You know what I did to escape? He touched his scarred neck. Things that weren't meant for doing. Brennan's cavalry moved closer, the colonel himself riding forward. Enough reunion talk. Where's the valley entrance, Holloway? He meant Samuel, but his eyes stayed on Ezra. And why is this Apache sympathizer here? Because he married one, Samuel said casually, and Ezra saw the trap his brother had laid. Didn't you, brother? Took an Apache woman to bed while your wife's grave is still fresh. Brennan's face darkened with disgust and triumph. Then he hangs with them. Sergeant, arrest this traitor. But Samuel raised his rifle, not at Ezra, but at Brennan. No one touches him but me. This is family business. The tension crackled. Raiders faced soldiers, each group fingering weapons. Exactly what Ezra had hoped for. There's something you should both know, Ezra said loudly. The Sacred Valley isn't what Fortuna Enterprises told you, Samuel. And it's not what the Army believes either, Colonel. It's mineral water worth millions, Samuel spat. Enough to make us all rich. It's Apache sacred ground hiding gold, Brennan countered. It's children, Ayana's voice rang out from above. White and Apache children, dying from diseases you brought to this land, being healed by water your greed would destroy. She emerged from cover, and Ezra saw both groups tense. But then Sarah Hartley appeared beside her. The white child, everyone thought dead. Then more children, Apache and white together, standing on the ridges above. That's the Hartley girl, one of Brennan's soldiers gasped. They said Apaches killed her family. We saved her, Nashota said, appearing despite orders to stay hidden, her voice carrying strong despite her injuries. Just as the water saved dozens of white children whose parents brought them secretly, desperately, begging enemies for mercy, Samuel's damaged eye twitched. Tricks. Lies. Look at me, Samuel, Ezra said, stepping closer. Really look. When have I ever lied to you? For a moment, something human flickered in Samuel's good eye. The brother who'd carved toys, who'd pointed out constellations. But then it vanished, replaced by Andersonville's survivor. Everyone lies when money's involved. Then I'll show you the truth, Ezra said. The whole truth. But these men stay here. Just you and me, brother. Like when we were boys exploring caves. Samuel followed Ezra through the hidden entrance, while Brennan's protests echoed behind them. The Sacred Valley opened before them like a fever dream, impossibly green, steam rising from pools that caught the setting sun like scattered jewels. Samuel's scarred face went slack with wonder, then hardened with calculation. There's enough water here to bottle for decades, he said. Fortuna will pay 10 times what they promised. Look closer, Ezra said, leading him to the healing pools where Apache healers tended children. Really look at what you'd be destroying. That's when the crack of rifles shattered the peace. Brennan's cavalry had forced their way in, exchanging fire with Apache warriors. In the chaos, Nashota threw herself in front of white children as bullets flew, taking a shot meant for Sarah Hartley. She collapsed at the pool's edge, blood spreading across the sacred stones. "No!" Ayana ran to her sister, pressing desperately on the wound. The sight stopped even the fighting, something about a woman's anguish transcending sides. Ezra and Samuel reached them as Nashota's breathing grew shallow. The younger sister, who'd spoken of prophecies and promises, was dying, her blood mixing with the sacred water. But as it did, something extraordinary happened. The minerals in the pool began to glow, not faintly but with genuine light, spreading from where her blood touched water. "The sacrifice," Chief Kuruk said, appearing with his warriors. The old stories said the water's true power would only reveal itself when Protector's blood was freely given for enemies. The glowing spread through all the pools, and wounds began healing visibly. A cavalry soldier's shattered arm straightened. An Apache warrior's chest wound closed. Even Samuel's scarred neck began to smooth, though the deeper scars of Andersonville remained. "This is impossible," Brennan whispered, his military certainty crumbling. Nashota's eyes fluttered open, the bullet wound closing, as Ayana held her in the glowing water. She smiled weakly. "The valley chooses," she said. "It shows what it truly is, only when we show who we truly are." Samuel stood frozen, watching his brother hold both Apache women while white children clung to Apache mothers, while enemies became witnesses to something beyond comprehension. The rage that had carried him since Andersonville faltered against this impossible grace. "They tortured me," he said to Ezra, his voice breaking. "Every day for 2 years. Made me into something monstrous. I came here to destroy something beautiful, because I couldn't stand that it existed when I'd become so ugly." "You came here because you're still my brother," Ezra said. "And brothers can be forgiven." The standoff balanced on a knife's edge. Brennan's men looked to him for orders, while Samuel's raiders waited for his command. The Apache warriors stood ready, but it was Chief Kuruk who spoke. "The valley has chosen to reveal itself. Now you must choose. Destroy it and lose your souls forever, or protect it and find redemption you don't deserve but desperately need." Samuel looked at his scarred hands, then at the healing water, then at his brother standing between two worlds. "The money from Fortuna would never fill the hole Andersonville carved in you," Ezra finished. "But this place might. Slowly, painfully." Samuel lowered his weapon. His men followed reluctantly. Brennan, faced with the undeniable miracle before him, made his own choice. "We report that we found nothing. The Apache Valley remains a myth." As the sun set behind canyon walls, an unlikely treaty was forged. The valley would remain protected, its location secret, but its healing available to all who came in genuine need. Samuel would stay, helping guard what he'd meant to destroy, finding in service what revenge couldn't provide. Brennan would redirect his patrols, ensuring no one else searched these canyons. Ezra stood with Ayana, as people who'd been enemies an hour ago worked together to tend wounded, to share water that belonged to no one and everyone. His ranch might be failing, but he'd found something worth more than land. A purpose, a family, a future where broken hearts could heal. The sacred valley kept its secrets, but opened its heart to all who approached with empty hands and willing spirits. And in that impossible peace, the prophecy was fulfilled. A broken white man with Apache heart had helped two people see each other as human. If you enjoyed this story of redemption and the powerful bonds that can form between the most unlikely souls, click the like button and subscribe to the channel. Tomorrow brings another incredible tale of human courage against impossible odds. Until then, remember that sometimes the greatest treasures aren't gold or silver, but the healing that comes when enemies become family.